so let me, I'm just gonna, first I gotta figure out how to get the lights on. I'm just gonna do a quick thing to get you through the whole chapter. It doesn't take, okay, just push the buttons until something breaks. Did it come on? Oh, something came on.
Thank you.
Did that work? I guess we don't. You know, at least you can. I don't know. Those lights, what are they doing there? It was? Okay. Now we're awake. So, let's just, let me see this computer little deal. Well, that's not showing the same thing. Oh my gosh. Okay. Here, let's try this. I don't know. Half the time. There we go. That's probably good enough. Okay. So let's say we had a object that was, say, out like this. Okay, you make it a little bit bigger because I don't know how things look on that. So here, this goes up, and then it goes out, and then it goes up, and then over. So I'm just making stuff up. And let's say someone pulls it here with, I'll start using symbols, but I'll say F1 is equal to 10 pounds, F2 is equal to 3 pounds, and it doesn't matter how I got there. Let's say this distance is 5, and this distance maybe is 10. So, and then to throw a curve in here, I'll say somebody pulled it straight down here, and this was 3 feet across, so these are all feet. And somebody says, what's the moment produced by this? Let's focus on this one first. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on this one. And so I'm going to call this F0. I'm going to focus on this one first, and then I'm going to add these two. So, in fact, there's this thing called line of transmissibility, which says I can bring this force down or up anywhere as long as I go along the line of its action. But why? And in the why also, I hope to show something. So we'll just look at the moment produced from the O. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead over here, say, or maybe I should do it here. Put a coordinate system here. And what I'm going to do is, so the coordinate system looks like this. So an X and a Y, but it also has a positive moment here, meaning it's right-handed. You start at the X, you roll to the Y, and you're pointing to the Z. When you roll that way. So this is what I'm going to use as my basis of decisions for what is positive or what is negative. Now the book will show you can do things and you can become a little looser, but I'm going to show us how we can sit right close to the math, and then we'll move off and be looser later. So this kind of means actually that this moment is actually a vector, meaning that if this force, okay, so obviously this force is twisting, so here I need to label this spot. How about OR, origin? So I already have an F. How about we call that F3? So my moment at the origin, I'll call this O. From just that force, we'll add these two in a minute, but we're just going to do that one. It's going to be 10 times 3, or 30, but it is going to go like this. So if I want to write it in a vector form, it's going to be 30, and it's going to be the other way, minus, and it's going to be a K. Now, let's see if I can figure out a way of getting this. So this is something I can perceive. Let me figure out a way of getting it that always works, that's based upon mathematics. And this is talked about in the book. So I'm just looking at that one. So here's the deal. This is kind of a way of doing this. Okay. About this point, O. Okay, this is a vector from, oops, that's supposed to be F-R-O-M, from O to the point of application of, that's not of the force. Now in this case, this will be the force 3, so I'm going to say force number 3. So I'm just looking for that one. So if I draw a vector from here to the point where it's applied, it looks like it goes over 3, and I didn't describe how far this looks like maybe 8. How about 8? 8 feet. So now I'm going to just go about this in a very meticulous way, and I'm going to go look at the force. So what I have to do, across products, you put this one first and this one second. So the coordinate, if I drew a vector from here to there, it would go to the right 3 and go up 8. It would go to the right 3, go up 8, and it's in the plane, so it doesn't go into the board or out of the board. The F3 goes down opposite direction of the Y. It doesn't have an X component. It goes down, and it's 10, and it doesn't have a component going into or out of the board. So now if I write this down in the cofactor expansion, you eliminate this one and this one, you take that. 8, 0, minus 10, 0, minus J. Eliminate this one and this one, you take these two, 3, 0, 0, 3. And then you take this and this, eliminate it, and you have this. 3, 8, 0, minus 10. They having a party and they didn't invite us. That's just not fair. We're always having parties in this building. We never get invited. Okay, so, you ever had that? No, anyway, never mind. So, those are both 0. 3 times 3, wait a minute. Where did I get that other 3 from? This is supposed to be the J. This will be 3, 0, 0, 0. I like that 3 so much, I just copied it down in the wrong place. Okay, this one, eliminate that and that, so it's these 4 numbers, copied over. So that should be 0, 0, so I get a 0i plus a 0j plus 3 times 10, so that'll give me a minus 30, okay, and the 8 times 3. So, lo and behold, I get this. So that's what we perceived to actually happen here. Now, let's look at the math here and let's suppose. So if we suppose that we take this force and we move it like way down here to like minus 8,000. So we put a minus 8,000 here. Minus 8,000. Minus 8,000. Did it change anything? No, it didn't. So I could take this force and move it anywhere along the line of action. And that's called a transmissibility. It's what they call, I'm not probably going to spell it right. So I'll say transmissibility. How about that? So essentially, you can move that force anywhere you want along its own line of action. You can move this force along its line of action. You can move this force along its line of action. So these two forces have their own line of actions. This one has its line of action. It can be anywhere along here. However, if you're stuck with this really difficult situation and you're like trying to figure this out, you can fall back to this at all cases. In all cases, this will work. So now that I have that, let's find the moment at O from 1 and 2, okay? So if I want to know the total moment sitting at O, I got to add up the moment created from this one, the moment created from that one, and then the moment created from that one. So really, I should have a subscript here. This comes from 3. So let's do the one from 1 and 2 as well. And you'll see a pattern that just always happens. And the key is, if you just follow this, you draw a vector from the O to the force, it always works. Once you do that several times, you can eventually just see it. And I don't really ever like to present things that way, even if I do see it, because what I'm trying to do is different than what you're trying to do. I'm trying to give the information to everybody. So I can see that, but I don't want to just write that until I go through the math. So let's do this. I'm going to find the moment at O from the first force, the moment at O from the second force, and that'll be just R. So I should put a subscript on there. So maybe I should say O to 3, and I'll say R from O to 1, R from O to 2, because they're different. Times the force at 1, and when I say times, I mean a cross product. Force at 2. And you look at them, I'm sort of combining them. Pretty soon, you realize, okay, so let's look at RO1. RO to location 1. Oh, hey, RO to 1's the same location. So this is 1 and 2. So I go over 5, and I go up 10. Go over 5, and then I go up 10. That looks like a 6, but that's a 5. And then I go up 10. And then my forces. My F here goes only to the right, and it's 10 pounds. And then this one goes only up, and it's 3. I don't know why I chose 3. Maybe I should have chose 5, but I can multiply. You know, this 3 times 10 or 5, that's easy to do. So it only goes up, and it's 3. Now notice here, I'm very meticulous about following the sign convention. This one is because it went down. So it's a negative. So it's following a rigorous sign convention. So you just make sure this is your key. That's essentially what's happening here. And then you just go about doing this. Now here's what's funny, is I can add these together and you notice that row and that row are the same. So I can basically put these together, but I'm not going to quite yet. One of the things that happens here, or happens as a result of being here, is that these are in a plane. Okay, so let me kind of accentuate the structure here, because I'm going to start dropping something. Notice that, okay, this one, when I did the cofactor expansion, it ended up right here. And when I did the cofactor expansion, so I did eliminate this one and this one, I get these 4. Eliminate this one, I get these 4. But they always exist that way. So there's not really anything but a K component. So in other words, I can go about writing this, I can go about writing that, but this is the only one that's not negative. So I can just go ahead and write it and put these 4 numbers over here, 5 and 10 and 0 and 3. You can do the same thing here, and the reason being is because these 2 numbers kill off the I and the J component, because it's in a plane, and neither the force nor the vector has a Z component. However, and this is the reason I do it this way, when you leap over this and get to maybe the last section, I think, they do say, they put this structure in 3D. And there will be a possible, maybe it's not the last section of this chapter, maybe it's the one before. There will be a possible component here. So this is why I do it this way, instead of just start looking and say, oh, I can recognize this. Because you get into 3D and you start trying to recognize stuff, and it's not that easy. And so now I get K, which would be, I can multiply those 2. And I get this one and this one, but I get a minus that one and that one. Okay, so I should have put the 15 minutes. So anyway, if I want to do this, the moment now of 1 plus the moment now from 2, so the moment from 1, then the moment from 2, plus the moment from 3, becomes this number, and that number all added together. So I don't know which way you want to do it. So 15 minus 30 minus 100. And that's all in the K, so you get a minus, what is that, 15, and then it's a 115, right? I think I added that correctly. I may not have, but if I didn't, forgive me and correct me at the same time. So let's look at this transmissibility again. Okay, let's look at the transmissibility of the 1. Okay, so I got this force right here. I can move it back here. I can't move it up and down, but I can move it along its line of action. If I move it along its line of action, the 5 feet to this can change. This is 1. So let me identify. So I can change this to anything I want, any number I want. Is that correct? Did I do this correct? Oh, no, wait, this is 1. This is 1. Did I do this correct? 3. Oh, I mislabeled it. Wait a minute, that's 2. Sorry about that, I mislabeled it. See how I mislabeled it? Did I mislabel it? So this is 1. This is supposed to be F1. And it's this. And then 3 is supposed to be in this. So I mislabeled these. See what I'm saying? I want to make sure you see what I'm saying before I erase it. Just try to hide it. I'm not trying to hide my mistake. I'm trying to have you see what I did before I. So in fact, actually, this should be 2, 2, 2, and this should be 1, 1, 1. Let me again say this again so that you see why I goofed there. Okay, and let me get this Here, let me get this back off, and then I'll talk about transmissibility. Okay, hang on. Okay, so it is true, the R's are going to be the same, the 5 and the 10 and the 5 and the 10, right? This 3 is F2, which is that, which is going north, which only has a Y component, which is why it's in this. F1 is here, which is why I did this. It only has an X component. So it was okay, and nothing changed. It's just, I should have copied this one here and this one here, but it's easier now, since I have all this stuff to the right, it's easier to just say, this is 1 and this is 2. Let's go back to now the line of transmissibility. Okay, now I'm going to look at this. I'm going to move to F1, which is this, which is right here. I'm going to move this wherever I want. I'm going to move it to 5 million. Okay, 5 billion. I'm going to move that force over 5 billion feet. Nobody's going to do that. But if they did, you notice it gets completely clobbered anyway. So I can move this anywhere I want. So for your mind, what I find easiest is just to move it back straight above the force. And you kind of, this is what people do in their brains. It's the only thing I know that I can predict that people do in their brains. They move it back to here. And then you've got this being perpendicular, it's 10 foot. So it's like somebody took the thing and turned it 10 foot, 10 pounds, turned it this way. Does that make sense? So this is what you should get used to doing, is if you can move that anywhere, just move it to 0. So now the line of transmissibility here. I can move this one anywhere. I can take that force, say my finger is the vector, I can move it along its line of action. Why not put it right here? Okay, so the 10 in the upper one. Gonna move that. Yeah, 10 million, 10 billion, 10,000. It sits there, doesn't matter what it is. The 0 clobbers it. So why not just move it to right here in your mind? You know, not physically, but in your mind. Just move that one to right there. This one was 3, this one's 10. 3 and 5, 15. It's like a torque wrench going that way. It's a positive. So it's that. This one's like a torque wrench going this way, opposite of that way, negative. This one, where did it go? This one is, okay, I never moved it, but here, I'll try to move it. So it's like a torque wrench here. Went down the line of action, it's going that way, which is opposite to that way, and it's a negative. And so line of transmissibility, or whatever, is essentially moving that force along the line, not just randomly, but to help you move it back to the point in your mind where it's like this. It's perpendicular. So now you just got a bunch of torque wrenches. So what you have now is this. Okay, give me a second here. You got 3, you got 10, you got 10. This is 10, this is 3, and this is 5. So now you look at this and you say, oh, this one and this one are going together. 30, 100, 130, 15 going the other way. And just like that, 130 minus 15, I think that's still 115. So essentially the fact that it's a negative K means it's going not this way, it's going the other way. So the moment total will be that. Now often in the book what he'll say, he'll write down the moment 115 going this way. Oh, sorry, I got that going the wrong way. Why is it going that way? Because that's positive, it's going the other way. So sometimes they'll say the number and then draw a little circular thing with an arrow on it. And that's to indicate that he doesn't want to commit to this. Now I commit wholly to this thing. The reason I commit wholly and completely to this thing is because the mathematics is based upon the right hand. You know, when you do these cross products, if it comes out negative, if it comes out positive, that means it goes this way. If it comes out negative, it goes that way. So I'm all in on this. I'm all in on this because it's easy for me to do. And MATLAB has a little thing called cross. If you had a vector R and a vector F, you just do it and out it pops. And some numbers can be, sometimes it can be negative, sometimes it can be positive, sometimes it can be zero. And so in this, what we did, essentially, is we kind of defined transmissibility. We looked at the concept of how you do these. The key is, you want to know the moment about a point from a particular load, and then you draw a vector from that O spot to the application of the load, and then you figure out what that load value is. In this case, 3 is just minus 10 in the y direction, so minus 10j. And so you list them out. You do that way. Either some people have this on their calculator. I don't know how you enter the R, and I don't know how you enter the F. I know exactly how you do it in MATLAB, and it's pretty easy to do. And the nice thing in MATLAB, you can enter this vector. Like if you did R, you can do it this way. You know, say it's a value 1, a space, a 2, and a space, and a 3. Say it's an X, Y, and Z coordinate. It'll come out and it'll create a vector like this. But if you do R equals to 1, and then the little winky thing, isn't that right? Semicolon. Wait, if you do that and that, isn't that one of those things? The sideways smiley face. So you could do that, but then you could do this. What does that mean? I know what that means. It's just someone looking the other way. This, is that winking? What is that? That's just a hair loss, like a hair sticking out of your eye, right? You ever thought about that? There's so many things now to think about that have nothing to do with anything anymore. Anyway, if you do like this, it'll come back and it'll say 1 and 2 and 3. Guess what? If you put this in, I think there's a little bar that comes out like this. Either one of these, you can do the cross product, as long as you list your F is equal to 10, as long as the structure is the same, 20 and 30, you can cross this one with this one. But if you try to cross this with this, it gets mad at you. I think. Now maybe the new versions recognize that that's okay. So what I'm saying is, you may have to make sure you write in MATLAB the right way. I guess I could bring it up, but then I got to turn on the projector, wait 5 minutes, and the technology will probably fail, so I'll just not waste that time. This morning I had a giant fail because logged in, nothing was on the computer at all. And so I'm like, I can't do anything. So then I rebooted it, it was all fine. It's just probably some kind of virus on it or something. The place is full of viruses. Oh yeah, we had a lot of viruses last couple of years, didn't we? So COVID, isn't that computer virus? Computer virus. No, that's not an acronym for virus. Anyway, I shouldn't go there. So does this all make sense? Because Oh, we still got time. I could do another thing that's funny. Is this okay? Because then I'll go do something else that's kind of weird. Okay? And I guess I could go ahead and do it on this drawing. So let me erase this and kind of try to touch this up without taking too much effort. And I'll sort of do this and sort of say, hey, wait a minute, you know, this is going to be a mailbox maybe, and somebody's pulling it. So there's maybe a mailbox on it, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, it's got all these forces on it. So what you're interested in is that the thing won't fall apart. In other words, pull out of the ground. So if you just buried this like a ½ an inch in the ground, it's probably just going to fall over. It's 10 foot, it's 10 pounds, so total it's 115. Now I should put units on this because it's actually 115 foot-pounds. Now if I don't bury this mailbox or whatever very deep, it's just going to fall over. So, you know, I might need to bury it very deep. So how do you determine how deep it is? Now the soil stuff, that's the civil engineering. There's a whole course on that. So that would tell you a little bit more here. But one of the things I first need to know is, hey, if this is the case, there's probably some kind of moment here that the ground is putting back on the mailbox post. And there's also some sort of force here. So what I'll do is I'll just call this moment G for ground. Can't think of anything better to call it. And then this will call it force ground Y. And then I'll try, you know what I'll do? I'll move this over in this 5 foot here. And then I'll put, now I may be having the wrong directions on these. Force ground in the X. Now, the thing is I don't know what those are. But here's what's so funny, not in a funny sort of way. I take the ground away, and if I replace these forces with the ground, I should be able to find each one of these. And the question is how? Okay, so first I've done all the math. Maybe I could sort of get back some of the real estate here by like maybe getting rid of some of this and using this little area right here. Because I don't need to do too much. So guess what? You sum the forces in the X direction equals 0 because it's supposed to be static. So if you put a force on it, it's not supposed to move anywhere. So I've assumed this one to be that direction. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with that. I'm liking to always make, this is just me, I like to stick to positive being that way. I like the coordinate system. I like to keep the coordinate system. I'm not going to flip the arrow over. That's just me. You can flip it over, but I like to keep it always consistent with the coordinate system. That's just me. So that means I have this force, ground X. That one doesn't go from the left to the right. And this one doesn't either. But this one does. And it's going to the right. So 10 pounds equals 0. And that's all I got. So that tells me, oops, I drew it in the wrong direction, but I drew it in the positive direction. Now here's where you get yourself like, okay, what should I do now? Okay, should I flip the arrow or just leave it as a minus sign? You know, it kind of depends on how he asks these problems. My initial reaction might be to do this, and then put a minus sign here, and then if I do that, if I can doctor it quickly, I'll doctor it as quick as I can and move on. So I've got that, that's 10 pounds. Now, I sum the forces in the Y, and again, I stick to the coordinate directions. That's just me. I mean, you may find in the book he might not. So I get this, F ground Y. Is there any other Y? There's this one, and then there's that one. So there's that one's going down, and that one's going up. And so you take that 7 and you move it over, and you say the ground y is equal to 7 pounds. So I don't think, my reaction is, it's not pulling it out of the ground. So this is probably not going to be why the thing fails. And it's not going to shear it off, you know, like take the thing and shear it off at 10 pounds. Is that right? 10 pounds. But the moment might not be good. You know, the forces are moved far enough away that 115 foot-pounds might not be good. So what do? You sum the moments about this location. I kind of got rid of it, but here. O, or G. I'll just call O and G. It's at the ground at point O. And it's also equal to 0 too. Now, think about this. I can take an object in space, and I can put a force here and a force here. Say 10 pounds, 10 pounds. The sum of the forces in the X is equal to 0. Yeah. Sum of the forces in the Y equals 0. Yeah. Sum of the moments equals 0. No. So from this component, it's static. This one, it's like, oh, that's not static. What happens if you do that? If it's in space, it just starts spinning. So you got to have all three of these for something to be still. And so in this particular case, when you're starting to talk about members like this, and you're not at a point, like for example, before we had these cables, let me do a better job there. So you had a cable coming down and a cable over here, and it's attached to the wall. And then you got to wait. You want to know the tension in this member and tension in that member. When you're looking at that, it's kind of at a point. You're taking that, and you got this, and you got that, you got that. There's no moment at that point from any of those loads. So you never had to think about a moment. No one cared about a moment. Because it's, you know, you pull on something like that, the particle's not going to go spinning. Now you have this extra thing, because you're like, wait a minute, if I don't do this right, it could be sitting there, but it could start spinning in circles. So I've got to have that. And me, I follow the sign convention because there's no reason to ignore math. Actually, as opposed to a lot of people, math is your friend. And then, what do you get? Well, there's just a moment put there. That's it. And it's spinning this way, which is the same as that. So it's the moment at the ground, or actually the moment the ground puts on the thing, but I'll just call it mg. And then I just like, oh, what's all the others? Well, I can sum them all up. It's this one, this one, this one all together. But that's just essentially all together, it's equal to minus 115. Okay, 1 comes before the 1, and then the 15. Now, technically, this is in the K as well, because it's going this way. It's a coordinate which goes this way. This one's going that way. So it turns out the moment at the ground is equal to 115. If you move it across, then that is the correct thing. You think about it, this is pulling down, and this is pulling that way. This is small, it's further away, but it's not pulling as much. And so the moment at the ground is, in this case, 115 foot-pounds. Now, again, you move it there, and you say, okay, it is K. If I write that, then that dictates that that's the direction. In the book, sometimes he'll say moment G is equal to 115, and it's like that. He'll again put that, so you can either or put that, or put that one. But the key is, depends on, you know, which one he asked you to do. I don't know. So that's in a nutshell. We got two more things to do. We did transmissibility. I like to do them in the very rudimentary way that fixes itself to the coordinate system. Start there. From that, we figured out transmissibility, or we figured out what it is. The next thing is to do a couple, which I don't really have time to do that. And do that, well wait, you're on vacation, start tomorrow. And did y'all get the email I sent? There's a bunch of videos I sent, maybe 5 of them, I don't know. And I have plenty more, I've got a bunch more, so if that's not enough, let me know. And then after the couple is a big thing, because it's, which we've done, the other part we've kind of done here, we've moved all the forces to an equivalent force here at the ground. He does it in a weird way. I do it in this way. I go straight to the free body diagram and figure out what is the ground putting back on this thing to keep it still. And that's what we ended up with. This is what the ground is putting back on the structure to keep it still. He goes through another step. He'll say, what's the equivalent load if we move the forces over to here? That's okay, but then really, what you really want to do is you want to find out, what do I need to do to keep this? For example, let's say, this is crazy, but let's say you decided let's say you dug down, you hit a rock, and you're like, oh, I can't go very deep. Oh, that thing's going to fall over. Hey, let's put a board right here, or weld a little piece right here that lays across the top of the ground. How do you do it? Why do you do it out here? Because this is the moment that the ground's going to have to put back on there. If this pulls down, this will keep it up. But if you put it over here, it's still just going to flop out of the ground. So there's other things you might want to know. So this is kind of a weird logical concept, because you would probably just keep digging a hole, and you dig a hole through there and make it deeper, but you can do it when structures, you might have an I-beam that gets stuck to another I-beam, and you're trying to keep it from falling over. So you had an I-beam sitting right here, and then it's connected to this other I-beam, and this thing's pulling over, so you weld this little plate right here and put what's called a gusset on it. That keeps it from falling. Do you need one over here? Well, yeah, but it probably doesn't need to be as big, just to keep it stable. Maybe this would be thick aluminum, and this would be the thin, or metal. So this would be the thin. So most of the moment's going that way. You need to beefing up this one. So there's little things. So this is a mailbox digging in the hole. This is two I-beams put together, because you can't dig a hole in an I-beam. I guess you could, but it would be kind of weird. Or welds. Maybe you need to put a lot of weld there. So essentially, I'm doing it not just for today. And we're not meeting on Friday, so. So, did this all make sense? I mean, so anything I got to do, couple is kind of weird. It's actually kind of cool, because it's the one thing where you can move a moment around. And I'll show you, when you start moving a moment around, things change. But if you move a couple around, it doesn't change. And so what we'll do is we'll pick a problem like that, and I can show you how two of them go together. If you move them back and forth, it doesn't change. But if you take it off and take one of them off, it does change. And so we'll look at that and kind of just do it this way, so that we can see what happens and go about our merry way. So in the meantime, I'm hot and I'm hungry. Are y'all hot? Is it hot in here, or is it just me?
A little bit.
All right. Let me cut this stream off and